Sean, I suppose, look, the reality is you're at the launch of the All-Ireland series, which would suggest we're at the business end of the championship.
Yeah.
Clearly, Limerick are in a situation where that's where you would have wanted to have been at the start of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. We've worked hard over the last number of weeks to get to the place we are now. And even though the league, we've progressively improved as the games went by. There would have been questions marks asked of us in the first game, imagine. But as the weeks went by, we just got better, and we knew that ourselves, and the performances reflect that. So we were hoping to get that bit better now the next stage run and build on what we have worked on over the last couple of weeks. It's been a nice run in. We're a week and a half out now at this stage, and really looking forward to the semi-final.
Sean, would you have any worries during the league? I know you're an experienced outfit and you were clearly working to a plan. But yourself personally, did you have any worries about your form or where you were when things weren't going as everyone would have liked?
Not at all, Jerome, to be quite honest. We knew probably, well, not knew, but teams probably had that bit more work than us done going into the first game of the league. We got that draw against Tipperary, but the stats that we looked at as the league progressed, it evidently showed that we were getting better, and that was a good sign. If we were stagnant and we weren't really improving as the weeks went on, you'd be worried. But the stats show that we were getting better and better, and we knew we were in a good place, and we would be in a good place come the championship if that continued. And that is the case. You look at what Galway, who were flying it in the league campaign, and look where they are now. So we knew ourselves internally, once we looked at the stats, that we were improving, and that gave us confidence that we were in a good place, albeit some might have thought that we were underperforming.
That takes a lot of trust from management to players and vice versa, from players to management.
Yeah, absolutely. We trust everything that the management are doing from a strength and conditioning point of view, but also from a coaching perspective. And we obviously have a stats team there as well. So we knew that we were working hard in training as well. And look, we're just doing what we've done over the last couple of years and building and trying to improve every week. But yeah, there's massive trust between the management and the players, and that's important to recognise that, okay, we might not be going as well as we are going, or we want to go, but we're improving, and we will be in a good place, and we are in a good place a week out or a week and a half out from the next game.
John would have spoken about it after the Munster final, that there's still room for improvement. I suppose there's been inconsistencies in both the Cork game and the Tip game so far.
Yeah, always room for improvement, Joe. We've showed patches of really good play and pieces of, I suppose, patches of play where we'd be proud of and we'd expect of ourselves, but we've yet to do it for 70 minutes or even for 60 minutes. So it's just looking to bring that second half performance and deliver that over a 70-minute period. And if we do that, we'll be in a really good place. But yeah, we've yet to perform over 70 minutes to a level that we're very proud of, and we'll be hoping to do that the next day.
Just finally for me, I suppose the return of supporters. I think last year everyone was happy that the championship went ahead and that you felt you didn't miss the supporters. But now that they've returned, do you realise you had missed them?
Oh yeah, and you probably noticed it too when you were at the game the last day when there were 7,000 there. It seemed that there could have been 17 or 27,000 there. It was when the second goal went in. So there was some element of novelty in it last year where there was late evening games under lights and probably didn't have much of an impact. But certainly in the middle of the summer, like when the weather was last weekend, to see the crowds back has been fantastic. It's so good.
Sean,
Matt, go ahead.
On the Munster final, we all know about the second half and where it came from. Where did the first half come from? Or was it Tipperary were exceptionally good, or we were very, very flat?
I think there was certainly Tipper excellent. Tipper really, really good, and it's a performance that maybe surprised them. But we weren't all that bad in the first half. As 22 minutes gone, we were still in a good place. We were 3 points down, I think, which in hurling is not a significant deficit. So we were in a good place with 25 minutes, but we were punished badly for our errors. Some days you might get away with some of those mistakes, but we were certainly punished badly for our mistakes, and that showed in the scoreline at half time. And then we addressed it. We knew we had plenty of time in the second half. There was 40 minutes to be played. Made a few, I suppose, adjustments to our shape and the way we set up, and that stood to us. But we knew we still hadn't hit we hadn't got into our flow sense, and we knew if we did that we'd be in a good place. And that second half performance was one that we would have been proud of, but we were disappointed, of course, not to be able to deliver that over the 60 or 70 minutes. We can't be in a position where we are 10 or 12 points down in another game,
Sean, in the second last league game against Cork, it was a dress rehearsal for the championship. Obviously, Limerick didn't read much into it, and the shenanigans that went on with Cork with a kind of a weakened team and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that was a game we obviously focused on. We focused only on the next game, and that's always been the case, and that was the fourth or fifth game. But yeah, we knew Cork were going to be good, and we obviously knew the big players to come back into the championship team in Thurles. But again, we don't necessarily focus, Matt, on who we're playing. Of course, there's going to be some element of analysis from the management perspective of how they set up and how they play the game, whether they carry it or deliver it long and stuff. So we typically focus on ourselves, and that has been the case, and that was the case against Cork and Tip. And albeit looking at their game plan as well. But yeah, Cork, they're a good team. They are a good team, and they're only getting better. So they're definitely a team to look out for and one to be wary of if we do meet them in a semi-final.
I know it's not your area of the field, but on the day against Cork in the championship, we shot 20 wides, which was very alarming.
Alarming, but I suppose in the game of hurling, you're going to get a lot of wides. It's just important to be shooting. You're getting scores, and we're also getting into positions where we are being able to make shots and stuff. But yeah, it's probably something that has shown over the last couple of years where we had a high wide count, and sometimes we've been punished for it. But we're also getting a lot of scoring chances. We're getting above 40 scoring chances, and that's a good return. Albeit we would, of course, be looking to be that bit more efficient, because you put 6 or 8 of those wides over the bar, you're a hard team to beat if you've scored 226.
It has improved in the last 2 games somewhat, but we have been far, particularly in the league, far from prolific when it comes to goal scoring.
I probably disagree with you, Legend. Like we've got goals over the last 2 games. Maybe something we focused on over the last couple of weeks, and have shown over the last 2 or 3 games. I don't know, did we score goals in the league game against Cork? Like, we've scored goals and we're getting goal chances. Albeit we mightn't have been converting them a couple of weeks ago, but we are getting those chances, and it's probably something we need to focus on again, because of course I know when we do concede goals, it's a big blow, but when we do score them, it gives us a massive boost. So like we have been scoring goals over the last couple of games, and I'd be hoping that the lads up front will be scoring 5 or 6 of them, Matt, if they're good.
Can I throw it on to Trevor? Or just try to move it, Trevor.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Matt.
Sean, we've seen a feature of the championship, particularly the last couple of weekends, is the start teams are making and on the other side, then the deficits that teams are trying to rein in. Galway were trying to do their best Limerick impression last week, just came up a bit short. Is the start really? It's always important to get off to a good start, but particularly, I suppose, that teams are chasing down these huge leads, and I suppose the physical effort that takes out of you, that's the point of my question. People said that the first half took a lot out of Tip when you see their second half performance against Limerick. What did it take out of Limerick in terms of your post-match recovery from the Munster final, the second half?
I suppose the nature of teams we're playing against, they're going to be well up for games against us, considering there's probably that tag on our back. I suppose they're coming into a first 15, 17 minutes with a lot of emotion, a lot of adrenaline in their body, and there's going to be a kick out of them. But as has shown that is inconsistent, and that adrenaline and that high can't last, and it won't last for 70 minutes, very rarely anyway. And we know teams are going to come at us all guns blazing in the first 17 minutes, but we know we're process driven. If we can maintain minutes, it'll be that more consistent than emotionally driven teams. The second half I actually found it that bit easier because we weren't chasing them around the place and we were on the ball that bit more. But yeah, like any championship game, you're going to be sore for a number of days, like probably till the Wednesday. But we've had a good week and a half now. We're in a really good place. We're back training, the head's down, and we're focused on game 4 or game 3 at this stage. So yeah, it's something that teams, again, you're going to expect them a kick out of them in the first 15 minutes. You'll also see a kick out of them after half time as they be hyped up again after coming out of the dressing room. But we've seen that it's inconsistent and it's hard to maintain that adrenaline and that high for 70 minutes, and we'd be hoping to just tip away. But you do need to consider the deficits that we are maybe giving up. If Cork got that goal, it could have put us 7 points down, that penalty. So that's something we do need to address, that we can't allow teams to get into position where they're 7 or 10 points up, because we mightn't be as lucky the next day around, and that's desperately unfortunate, because we would consider ourselves, if we got the performance that we deserve, or not deserve, if we got the performance that we'd be proud of and expect of ourselves, then we'd consider ourselves a really difficult team to beat.
Sure. John Kiley was referencing the squad after the win and challenging the squad members to put pressure on the starting 15. What are the Limerick training sessions like? We used to hear about Kilkenny's training sessions and the intensity of them. Are they more intensive as a championship gets on, or, given, I suppose, the narrow gap between games, they're maybe not as intense as they are earlier in the season?
No, I suppose the days of the week before a game being toned down and probably have been gone in our camp anyway, where there's always competition, and actually the number 16 to 36 are probably more important, and it's very easy for us to say that they are more important, but they really are that important to the group, for lads on whether it be 36 or number 16 to be pushing those lads that have played the game before to a level that gets the best out of them. And if those lads on the bench or on the extended panel the last day are hitting a form that they could potentially be playing, it's up to the lads that are playing or starting in the previous game to match and to, it gets the best out of them, and like we've referenced those lads on the extended panel and the subs the last day, and I say the last day because that will be completely different the next day. The lads starting aren't guaranteed their place, but they are so important to the group, and they work hard and they push those lads that have played in the previous game so hard, and it gets the best out of everyone in the group. But yeah, we've always mentioned those lads, and they're so important to the group.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Ask Raphael.
Sean, I suppose this team, we've seen how they've kind of reacted to deficits, to setbacks, and to problems. And how good are the team and this management team of addressing the likes of that Tipperary deficit last week, Lone Cork, and putting a plan in place to rectify it?
Yeah, I suppose Paul and John and our stats team are probably the best at identifying an area that we're being punished in, and where we're struggling to get a grasp of. The Tipperary puckouts, for instance, we were punished badly for not dealing with their puckouts, and it was our mistakes. But we didn't actually on the field identify where the error was or where the issue was. And I suppose even after the first water break, we still got punished off another puckout, and they got a second goal from it. But second half, then went in half time, we still knew that there was plenty of time. Like 40 minutes is a long time. And you get 1 or 2 goals, you're in a great place. And we were lucky we've tacked on 3 points early in the second half, and that carried us through. But it was more so focused on ourselves, our position, the way we set up on our puck out, the way we set up on their puck out was probably the difference in that second half, and how we used the ball. And rather than shooting from far out, we carried it that bit more, and asked the questions of Tip, of their legs, Did they have it on their legs to follow the likes of Kyle, Hego, Keane as they were taken on? But they're really good at, Paul in particular is excellent at identifying an area that we're being punished and struggling with, and being able to come up with a plan that will counteract that.
Just finally for me, I know one of the managers, I can't remember who off the top of my head, was bemoaning the lack of the Muir Ferner over the weekend, especially with the return of crowds, and it's harder to get messages on field. I suppose with that in mind, how important are the water breaks now to get those tactical messages across when Muir Ferner is gone, and with the return of crowds? How hard is it to react in game and to get messages on board?
Yeah, definitely the crowds coming back is an obstacle. Even from players communicating to one another, or whether it be a half-back communicating to a wing forward, that's difficult, and you can hardly hear it yourself. But look, all teams are in the same position in terms of the Muir Ferner. But there's plenty. I think there's plenty of opportunities in the water breaks to be able to communicate a message to the players, and then it's up to the players to adapt to a situation or to a scenario or a setup that another team poses. It's up to the players to identify where or what they're doing, and then being able to adapt. And I think we're good at that, being able to adapt to different situations, albeit maybe not in the first half against Tip where we were punished for their puck out. But it is the Muir Ferner is an issue. But the players and management in particular have adapted, and they will continue to find, I suppose, ways of communicating to players on the field, albeit in other ways other than the Muir Ferner.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, so Sean, obviously, we've spoken about the return of crowds, and obviously, like, I'm talking to you from London here today, and I was just wondering, like, do you get, like, obviously the Limerick people in London haven't got a chance. Well, no GA fans have got a chance to get back for games the last year. This year should be different. Do you get a sense of the support that you have overseas and around the world from the Limerick people, wherever they may be, in spite of them not being able to be there as it was last year?
Yeah, for sure. Of course, like, even a lot of people travelled up to Cork the last day, albeit they mightn't have tickets for the game. They'd go up just for the occasion and to see the bus driving into the stadium and stuff like that. So Limerick have always been fantastic supporters. There's great support out in London, over in the States, as far as Dubai. And yeah, look, I've buddies out in those places, and they'd always be tuning in the middle of the morning in some cases to watch games. So there's definitely, and Limerick have always been fantastic supporters through the good and the bad. So yeah, for sure.
Just reflecting on last year and winning the All-Ireland in front of an empty Croke Park, does it seem very bizarre when you look back on it, just the way it was done? Yeah,
I suppose. Yeah, for sure. Like, Croke Park is a massive place, and I suppose considering it was on in the middle of December is probably something we look back in years to come and say how strange that was. But again, like, we went out to win the All-Ireland, and we done that, you know. But of course, when you're winning All-Ireland, you want 85,000 in the stadium, and you want 1,000 of people back in Limerick, and you go back. So those are days, and hopefully we'll experience those in the future. But yeah, for sure, we look back and say how crazy that championship was under lights, even in Packagh the day when it was lashing rain. But hopefully we soon get to a day where we win in All-Ireland and there's 85,000 there.
Great stuff. Thanks, David. Jerome, you had a question?
Just a very localized one. I was just wondering, Sean, is there any talk of judo out around Bruff these days with the Olympics coming up?
Any talk of which?
Judo. There's two people from Bruff in the Olympics. It's a very small link now, Sean. You'll have to go and Google it.
Yeah, go on. I haven't heard you actually. I must go look up it after this now. It's the first time I've heard of it. But if that's the case, I'll be tuning in. When's it on?
I think it's on the 29th. I'm not quite sure myself, to be honest.
Very good. No, I haven't heard it at all, and surprisingly. Usually that would be, if there's any sort of a connection at all to Bruff, you see with JFK, they're all over it. So I'm surprised that maybe I should let them know about this judo thing, and they might put it up on Facebook or something. But
that'll keep you occupied for the next 10 days.
Yeah, I do no work for the evening now, Jerome.
One quick one, Sean. Traditionally, there's been a big gap between a Munster final and a semi-final. Now, that wasn't the case last year. before it seemed to be a bit of a hindrance, the 4 or 5 weeks break, whatever. It's a lot shorter this year. Your own thoughts on that, Sean?
Yeah, obviously it's a week shorter now. It's 3 weeks, which in my opinion is really ideal. We got the first week to obviously enjoy maybe a day after the Munster final, and then attention turns to recovery, and we got a bit of training done last week, and now all our focus is on this week's training. And then we have a nice week, usually into our typical routine of the week before a game, and then we're focusing on a semi-final. But yeah, it's been ideal. It's obviously been a talking point from the 4-week gap, and it's, I wouldn't say thankfully, but it's not there this year. And I think 3 weeks is optimal. I think you get a week of recovery, 2 weeks of training, and you're in a good place. So yeah, looking forward to it.